we're ready to do January's project. This is the first one for 2024, and it's the Hello Spring round pillow that has the little fringe flowers and all. So let's get started. Now, what you're going to need to get started, if you purchased a kit, the kit's going to have the white background fabric, a third of a yard of the fabric that's going to be for the gathered border, and then the two back pieces, and we let you pick your fabric color. So this one is purple, mine happens to be the peach color, and then it also includes the zipper. Then if you needed the round pillow form. Now, stabilizer wise, what they're calling for is a medium weight cutaway. And what I'm going to do, I saw on a post on Kimberbells and Fellas, a lady had quilted her white fabric, so I want to do that. So I'm going to use a piece of poly mesh stabilizer and then a piece of batting. And so I think those two will kind of equal the amount of the medium weight cutaway. Then prep work, it did say to iron a piece of the interfacing SF101 or the fusible backing onto the back of the white fabric. So I think all of that should be stable enough to equal the medium weight cutaway. Then if you want to fringe a couple of the flowers, you will need some of the water-soluble thread wound onto a bobbin. And then your double curved scissors just to clip your threads, and then maybe some Kimberbell tape to tape everything down, and your thread assortment. Now, I'm going to talk to you just a minute before we get started about the thread and all. On page 4 of the instructions, I didn't, if you're here in the demo, I didn't print this off for you, but you have this in your set of instructions. They have this little chart down here for the different thread colors, and each one has a little different icon in it. And I think that's the only reason for that is so if your printer doesn't print very well, when you come over here in the instructions and it's showing you the thread colors, if your printer didn't print that as a good blue color, then you could go back and you could look at this little chart and it says the one with the square is a blue. So don't really need to worry about that all that much, because you're just going to pick whatever colors you want. Here is a good diagram of the design, and it's showing you what's going to be stitched in the different parts and everything, so that'll kind of help you pick out your thread colors from there. So on your machine, when you pull up the designs from your USB stick, you're going to have two files. One is for the 5x7 hoop, and then the other one is for the 8x12. So I'm going to be doing the 8x12, and I am going to quilt my fabric here in a minute, but I'm going to pull up the first couple of steps of the design first. So I'm going to set that, go to the embroidery machine, and then what it's going to stitch off first is just going to be like a placement line. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. And this is just on your stabilizer. So if you're not going to quilt your fabric, you're going to have medium or heavyweight cutaway. But since I am quilting it, I'm using the poly mesh or the lightweight mesh. Okay, so here's the two placement lines. And now if you're not doing the quilting, you will go ahead and iron the SF101 or the fusible backing onto the back of your fabric, and then you'll just lay that down and it'll stitch a tack down. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and lay my piece of batting down, and then lay my fabric on top of that, right side up, and then stitch the tack down. I'm going to make sure I'm halfway square since I was doing that standing up. Okay, so now it's just going to stitch the tack down, and it'll be going through all the layers. Okay, so since I'm going to be doing the quilting, I'm going to quilt my background, I'm going to stop here and get out of it. And I'm just going to do a real quick lesson demo on the Design Center IQ Designer right here. So I'm going to go into that. I'm going to go get my shape. I just want a quilting design to fill, so I'm just choosing that option. This pattern happens to be a circle, so I'm going to choose the circle. I'm going to size it to about this pattern was like 7.77, so I'm going to get close to that. Maybe a little bit bigger. I'll say that. Then I'm going to fill it with my quilting, so I'm going to choose the properties. I just want a stipple there. Touch the bucket next to the paintbrush, that's your fill. Touch inside the circle, hit next. This is where I can change it. I know I want that stipple to go right up against the edge of it, so I'm taking that option down to 0. And then I played a while ago, and I want the spacing to be a little bit over 0.3. So I'm just increasing that. We'll say about right there. Yeah, about right there. And then hit preview, say OK. And that looks good. Push set and OK. And then embroidery. So now I'm just going to quilt the whole background with this little stipple design. Okay, it finished doing the stipple, and so I just went back to the USB stick, got the 8x12 design, pulled back up. I'm going to get to the embroidery screen, and then I just need to forward through the placement line and the tack down. So I'm going to go where your needle with the minus and the plus, go down those 2 steps, and then I'm back to doing the embroidery. And so on the instructions here, I'm just going to go through and stitch off all the different colors until we get to step 17 on your instructions, which will be step 13 on your machine. And at this point, that's when we need to put the water-soluble thread in our bobbin if you want those designs to be fringe. So we're just going to set up the camera on the tripod and just kind of go through the embroidery until we get to that step. So we are now right here in our instructions. So it's step 17 of the instructions, but it's step 13 on your machine, and it has the little icon for the water-soluble bobbin. So again, this is if you want these 2 little flowers to fringe. And so we're going to do the water-soluble thread. Another way you could do it is just, clip the bobbin threads. But we're going to try the water-soluble. So I'm going to take out the regular pre-wound and then put in the water-soluble bobbin, or the bobbin that has the water-soluble thread wound onto it. And then it's just going to stitch the next 2 flowers. So I'm doing the first one in the peach color, and then the second one will be the purple one. And after it stitches both of those, then we will put the regular bobbin back in. Okay, so it's done doing the fringe part, so of both of those flowers. So now we're going to put the regular bobbin back in, and we'll just use the regular pre-wound for the rest of the design. And what it does next is it stitches kind of the what do they call it, the tack down for the fringe flowers. So it's going to go ahead and do the purple one, and it'll just do like a little satin stitch at the base of these flowers, so that when you fringe, it doesn't all come undone. So it's basically the holding stitches that it's going to stitch now. So we're just going to keep going. We'll do the purple, we'll do the peach, and then it stitches a little bit of blue detail over here. and then we'll be done embroidering and we will finish putting the pillow together. Okay, so while the flowers are stitching, we decided to go ahead and come out here and kind of do what we can on the ruffle and the pillow backs and everything. So from your 1/3 of a yard of fabric, if you're doing the 8 by 12, you're going to cut a 3" by 38 1/4 strip. If you're doing the 5 by 7, you're going to cut a 4 1/4 by 38 1/4. And then for both of them, no matter which size you're doing, for the 2 back pieces, you're going to cut 2 7.5 by 12.5 inch pieces. So Bailey got that cut for me. And so now, while we're stitching, we're going to come over here, and it's just saying to take your long strip of fabric, fold it right sides together like that, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. So we're going to go to the machine. Okay, I'm just going ahead and I'm using the 1/4 inch piecing foot because all of the seam allowances and all for the pillow are a 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to sew my seam. I'm going really slow. Then we will press this open. And I'm just going to finger press it since I'm sitting right here. And then on one of the edges, the long edges, we're going to stitch 2 rows of basting threads. So I'm going to go ahead and lengthen my stitch length up. I'm going to take it to about 3.5, and then can you see the machine? When you're doing a basting stitch or a long stitch for a gather, if you loosen your top tension, it also helps that bobbin thread pull up, and so I just back it off a little bit. And it says to run 1 basting stitch kind of inside a scant 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start where that seam is, and I do not want this to tie off like it was doing just a second ago, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so I'm just going to go all the way around. Now, once I'm done and I come back around, since this is a basting thread or a long stitch that I need to pull up my gather, I am not going to use my scissor cutter once I come back around, because you need that bobbin thread long. Okay, so I'm getting back around here where I started, and so I'm just going to stop, raise my needle up, raise my presser foot up, pull the threads out. So again, don't use the scissor cutter so that you will have, well, try to use that scissor cutter, good grief. Then we're going to sew a second row of basting threads, a 1/4 inch to the inside of this first one. Now, I'm not using like the ruffler attachment or the shearing foot or anything like that, because this piece has to be pulled up exactly the size of our pillow around the flowers. And so when it has to be exact, I usually gotta go ahead and do a basting stitch and then just pull the threads up. That way I can control how much it's gathered up and all. So I have my basting stitches sewn in, or my long stitches to do the gather. So I'm just going to set this to the side because we're still waiting on the flowers to stitch off back there. So now I'm going to the back pieces. Now, she was calling for, and the instructions are written for, one of her lace zippers, but we could not order white lace zippers. All they had available were yellow, like a bright canary yellow. So we're using a regular zipper. So I'm just going to do this kind of the way that we do the zippers with the Biani bags. And so I'm going to take the zipper and put it right side down on top of one of the back pieces. The back piece is right side up. The zipper pull is over here to the left, and then I'm going to flip it over. So it's like this. So now basically the zipper is right side up, the fabric is right side down. And what I'm going to do is line it up so that just a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch of the zipper tape is sticking out down here at the bottom. And I'm going to take some little clips and clip it. I'm doing this backwards to me, so I'm going to just clip it along right like that along the edges, and then I'm going to sew with a fat 1/4 inch seam along here. So let me get this clipped, and then here, do it this way. So I'm still going to use the 1/4 inch foot. There we go. And when you do this, you can either sew, you have to figure out kind of which way works best for you. Either, good grief, either stitch with the fabric on the top or with the zipper on the top, either way. Main thing is you just want about 1/8 of an inch of that zipper tape sticking out past the raw edge of the fabric. So we are not folding under the edges or doing anything like the instructions are telling us to do. You could if you wanted to, it's just you would have the edges of this zipper showing instead of the lace, and I didn't want any of this zipper really to show, or not much of that zipper to show. So I'm doing it this way. So now we're just going to go to the machine, and again I'm just going to stitch off kind of a fat 1/4 inch. I'm going to go back to normal settings on everything. And so I'm just going to make sure about 1/8 of an inch of that zipper is sticking out the raw edge of the fabric. And I'm just going to go all the way down. Okay, so now that I've stitched that, what you do is you fold it down, and you can press it, and then we're just going to top stitch right along the edge of this zipper tape. And you can either sew from this side or from this side, either way. But what that does, see, if you have that fabric sticking out a little bit, then when you lay it like that and you top stitch it down, it encloses the raw edge of your fabric, so it looks finished on the inside. So we're just gonna do that. Voila. Okay, now I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the other side. So I'm going to take my other piece. This is right side up. I'm going to lay this piece right side down. Make sure and line up your two edges here of your fabric. And then make sure about 1/8 of an inch of that zipper tape is extending past the raw edge of the fabric. And then I'll just do the exact same thing. Stitch down it with a fat 1/4 inch, and then flip it and top stitch it. Okay, so I've got the zipper done. So now I just have my two pieces ready. So now we just need to finish stitching off the flowers. Okay, it's done stitching, and so I've unhooped it, and then now we're just going to turn it over and then just squirt those flowers with the water. And you have to get them pretty wet to dissolve all of that water-soluble thread. So I'm just gonna keep working this in and getting it wet and getting all of that to dissolve. Okay, and so it's dissolved, and then on the right side you just take your fingernail or something and just pull up all of that little fringe out of the fabric, and it makes it have a fringe little top. Now that was pretty easy. Some fringe doesn't come out as easy. That was pretty easy. Okay, so now what the instructions say to do, I know we've been kind of flipping back and forth here. Now we are on step 24. And it says just to trim the fabric and everything, and it says use the trimming line, and so that is the line here on the front. When it stitched the placement line, it did stitch, you know, 2 placement lines back here on the back. It's the outside line, so I'm just going to follow this one here on the front, and just trim right to the outside of that. Try not to clip your stitches, but just go right to the outside of it all the way around. Our next step is to gather this strip to match this. Now what I'm going to do is, okay, my seam is down here. I'm going to come up here, fold that together, and put a mark with a fabric marker, just so I know that's the center bottom, center top. Then I want that seam, they usually say the most inconspicuous place is the bottom right of your project. So I want that seam, I'm going to say, to be about right here. And so I'm going to fold this in half, where that fold line is, match the raw edges, and then put a mark here. So I'm going to match those marks here and here, and that way I know I'm distributing the fullness the same amount all the way around. Back to garment construction days when I used to make Bailey the little skirts and gather those up. So now I'm just going to get a hold of my 2 bobbin threads on one side, and because we loosened our top tension a little bit when we ran these basting stitches, you want to get a hold of your bobbin threads because those are looser than your top threads, and we're just going to start gathering up. This is going to take a little bit. Okay, so I've gathered this half of it. Okay, so I've gathered it up to my mark, and we went around and we matched it to the raw edge, and that's just about perfect. So what I'm going to do is tie off these 2 bobbin threads here and just tie them in a little knot. And then I'm going to get a hold of the other 2 bobbin threads on this side and start pulling the other direction and get it to match up the length, and then we should be good. Okay, so now I'm just going to gather this half of it until it matches the other half, and then I can kind of go around and distribute the fullness and all. And that's why you make 2 rows of your basting stitches, is so you have that extra security just in case one breaks. Okay, that's about good. I'm not going to tie these off or anything, because just in case I need to pull up some more or let some out, I'm going to work with it. And now I'm just going to match that point here. I'm not going to pin it yet. I just want to see if I have it gathered up the right amount. And then I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, so I'm just going to keep working with this and get my marks matched and my fullness distributed. And then, okay, I have it all pinned down and my gathers, I think, distributed nicely. And so now I'm just going to stitch all the way around it with a 1/4 inch seam. And just match up your raw edges, and you should be stitching kind of to the inside of that first gathering stitch. And I've just gone back to normal stitch length, normal tension, everything. And I'm just going to go around, and I hear a door shut, so somebody's coming in. We will come back. so I've got it stitched, and then now we just kind of open it up, and then I'll go in and remove this row of basting stitches. So just make sure you have it kind of the fullness the way you want it, and that you caught all of your edges and all, and then go in and get rid of that basting stitch. And then once I do that, I've already done the back, getting the back ready to go. So once I get the basting stitches out, we will be right over here on part 4, putting it together. So we'll come back. Okay, I've removed my basting stitches, and it says to lay like a press cloth down and press it, but what I did is I just turned it over like that and pressed it from the wrong side. And then we're now on part 4 of the instructions, and on step 3 here it says to open the zipper halfway. So before I even start, I'm going to go ahead and open the zipper, and then I'm going to try to keep that closed together, and I could even pin it if I wanted to, but make sure your zipper is halfway open. Then we're going to lay this down right side down on top of this prepared back, and we want your zipper halfway in the center of the pillow, laying horizontal. So we're going to lay it like that, and then I'm just going to start pinning all the way around and start here so it gets my zipper pinned into place. And then we will just stitch this together, so we're sewing it right sides to right sides with a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. So I'll get it pinned and stitched, and then we will come back. I've stitched all the way around it, and now I'm ready to trim. And again, before you trim, make sure you've opened that zipper halfway, because once you trim that off, if your zipper pull is over here, you're not going to be able to get into your pillow. So mine's open, so I'm going to use pinking shears to trim the seam allowance, and so that way it clips those little curves and it'll make it turn a little bit smoother. Okay, now I'm just going to open the zipper up a little bit more and then turn it right side out. There we go. And probably ought to press it. So, yeah. Press yours. I'm just going to go ahead and get the pillow in here. So then take your pillow insert, stick it up in there. It's so cute. There we go. And then zip your zipper. Pretty cute. Nice and springy. There you go. Hey guys, and we are ready to do January 2024's first. Hey guys, and we are ready. I don't know what to say. I was having a hard time coming up with what to have.